So for the past 8 months or so, the VR gunstock market has absolutely exploded with a bunch of new products and styles. Now, if you're trying to figure out what gunstock you're going to need, there's 4 things you should really be considering before you pull the trigger on your next gunstock purchase. Full disclaimer, I'm Jason, I'm the owner of Olen VR. We design, engineer, and manufacture gunstocks like all the ones you see behind me. I'm not trying to sell you our stocks. I would love for you to try one of ours out. But ultimately what I want to do is educate you and make sure you get the best bang for your buck on whatever you decide to pull the trigger on. First thing you're going to want to consider is the length of the gunstock. Average human height is about 5'7", so every gunstock is generally going to be made to accommodate players around that height. If you're a lot taller or you're a lot shorter, you're going to want to make sure it's going to work for you. One good way to do that is grab a measuring tape, put one end of the measuring tape in your hand and the other put it to your chest, go into game, and then position your hands like you're aiming down your sights, and then see how long the distance is. If it's about 18 inches, that'll give you a rough estimate of how long you'd want that distance to be from the buttstock to your trigger hand. Me personally, I like to have my sights nice and large when I'm sniping. Same thing goes with my ACOG or my hollow sight. I kind of want it really close. So I usually go for a more compact feel. Everybody's different, everybody's got a different preference. So make sure that whatever that distance really is, that gunstock's gonna be able to accommodate that distance for you. Now, length actually kind of lends into the next point, which is adjustability. Being able to adjust the length and controller positioning of your gunstock is really gonna affect how comfortable you are holding positions or just quickly ADSing and making sure it's reliable and on point every time. Let's say you wanted to use a B50 cal and your gunstock is really small. You're gonna find yourself positioning your offhand upward because the gun in game is super long, but your hands are really close together, so you're gonna have to accommodate for that downward pitch. If the length of the gunstock is too short from the buttstock to the trigger hand, you'll find yourself shrugging your shoulders to try to find that right positioning because your gunstock's not adjustable, which then leads to you having fatigue in your shoulder and everybody loses, and you might not use that gunstock down the road. Waste of money, nobody's happy. Being able to adjust the pitch and the yaw of the controllers is more of a luxury than anything. You can get along absolutely fine with a static positioned controller mount as long as it's actually made properly, but the downside is you really can't get that perfectly comfortable feel that you might want, or matching up to, let's say, an angle grip into bore. You're not gonna be able to do that because the controllers are static. Overall, if you're super picky about how your controllers should be positioned, opt for the adjustability. You're not gonna regret it overall. Just make sure it's easy to use. Now, the weight of the gunstock really just depends on your play style, what games you like to play, and how much you can handle long term. If you're into fast-paced shooters like Veil, Contractors, and Breachers, like I am, you're gonna want a super lightweight gunstock. If you have something that's really heavy, you're gonna find yourself getting slowed down because you constantly have to aim down your sights and reload rapidly. That extra weight, it's gonna build some muscle. Downside is you're gonna have slower speeds in the very beginning. If you wanna build yourself up to that, by all means do it, but less weight usually always means better performance. On the other hand, if you play games like Ghost of Tabor and Exfil Zone, you'll find adding the added weight is actually more beneficial because it's gonna make your aim feel a lot more grounded. You're not gonna have those micro movements because your gunstock is so light. That weight's gonna keep you from moving those tiny little movements, let's say when you're sniping or doing some mid to long range gunfights. So it's all about play style and it's all about balance. So make sure the gunstock can accommodate what you want out of it. So considering your play style and how weight affects it, ergonomics is the last and possibly most important thing to gunstocks. When I'm referring to ergonomics, I'm talking about how easy it is to use and how it gets out of the way when you don't want to be using it. Because you got to do a lot of movements outside of just shooting with your 2 hands. You got to reload, you got to use utility, grab your backpack, armor, all that good stuff. A good gunstock should stay out of the way when you're not using it, but also be really easy to access and ready for you when you need it. At the time of making this video, there's really 3 core gunstock styles that you'll find right now. There's ones that use a sling, there's one where it's a split body, and then there's the trigger hand fixed gunstock. The first one is pretty straightforward. Most people are familiar with it, where the gunstock, you wear a sling with it, your hands are connected to the gunstock, and when you don't want to use it, you split your hands off the stock, and then it usually rests on your hip or your stomach. The biggest benefit of this gunstock is that you'll be able to go hands-free, usually the easiest, and you can move quicker because you got no added weight to your hands. Drop the stock and then it sits on your hip or your stomach and you do whatever you need and literally nothing will get in the way. Now the downside to this gunstock is finding it when it's sitting on your hip or your stomach. If you don't position it right, or your Gunstock sling is really crappy, you might find yourself trying to fumble. Well, okay, where's that magnet? Where's that cup? How do I get to it? If you don't have a lot of experience with it, it's gonna take a lot longer to develop that muscle memory and find that positioning a lot easier. Another downside is that added bulk that you gotta have, because you have to wear a sling. And if you use a crappy one that comes with one of those cheap Gunstocks you find, it's gonna be rubbing your neck a lot with those really wide profiles, and it's gonna be really thick and bulky and in the way. Split stock is number 2, and that is where the Gunstock stays in your hands at all times. When you need to be at the ready, you simply reattach the Gunstock body, and then you can be at the ready extremely quickly. Downside is you have the Gunstock in your hands at all times, so you can't move super quickly. Extraction shooter players will find the biggest benefit out of this style because you don't need that rapid movement. You're not constantly reloading, and if you find yourself caught in a firefight while you're looting or something, you can simply snap the stock right back together. If you're a fan of OG contractors and Vail, then you're probably gonna find yourself not being happy with a split body style because you're gonna have to constantly reload, and usually your hands are gonna be connected to the stock 90% of the time, so you don't really need to split it apart as much. So with split stock, you gotta have that added weight, slows you down, and then you gotta just constantly reattach and disconnect it. It's gonna be completely unintuitive. Now finally, you have the trigger hand fixed stock, and usually those are most beneficial for faster paced games because the stock is always in your hands on just one hand. The other hand can always go free, so you can grab your utility, flick it, things like that. Downside is you're gonna have that sizable chunk of the stock extending on your offhand, so you might find yourself bumping your headset or your body if you're playing, let's say, Exfil Zone or Ghost of Jabor, and you need to heal yourself and put on armor, all those random things. You're gonna have that stick extending from your hand, so every once in a while you might be bumping yourself, and that can get kind of frustrating. So those are the 4 things you really wanna be paying attention to the next time you decide to make a Gunstock purchase. Weight, adjustability, length, and ergonomics are super, super, super important. Everything else we can go into detail if you'd like. If you want to see more, leave a comment below, like the video if you enjoyed it, if it helped you, and subscribe as always. Keep shooting.